Moving on with the second part here on Binary Options Academy, trying to explain what inflation is, what CPI is, and what we've done on the previous recording, or on the first part of this project. We looked at the CPI and explain a bit this Euro US dollar recent trade that the market made when the CPI flash estimate has been released. Let's try to go a bit back in time. In the economic calendar here, if you click on the this week, but on this arrow to the left side, you go back in time, and let's try to find some other CPI releases. And if you go back last week, for example, on the April 22nd, we had the CPI quarter Q/Q means quarter over quarter. So this inflation is calculated based on a 3 months period, and it is in Australia, so this is the currency that is affected. It is with red, of course. It is tremendously important. And let's see what we had here. We had the previous data, 0.8%. Remember, the mandate of a central bank is for inflation to be below or close to 2%. Now the previous was 0.8. The forecast was to be 0.8, but the actual on the Australian dollar, on the Australian economy, the actual inflation was 0.6%. Now this is extremely important because it puts a lot of pressure for the central bank next time that the central bank is coming. It puts a lot of pressure for easing the monetary policy. When you ease the monetary policy, basically the first tool will be to cut the interest rate. And then if you go on the Australian, if you go here on the economic calendar, you have the central bank rates, and you see that in Australia the central bank, or the rate for the Australian dollar, is 2.5%. So they will have enough room for cutting the rates. Whenever a central bank comes and cuts the rate, negative. And if you trade binary options like we do here on fairbinaryoptions.com, then this should be interpreted as negative, as said earlier. So we should go and buy put options. Now the expiration date depends very much on the horizons you are willing to take, but on this release, the Australian dollar, if you go back on charts and you look at the April the 22nd, and you look for the for this time, and you'll see that the Australian dollar US dollar virtually collapsed on the news. And I would be very interested to see the next time the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to meet, what the decision is going to be. So the next time when the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to meet, they will have to take into consideration this level of inflation. And then you go back on the economic calendar and look where they are going to meet. Now this week we were having no central bank decision, but next week, if you click on the arrow there, next week, and you will see that, let's try to see, this Monday we have non-manufacturing in the United States, and then here on Tuesday, Australian dollar here in Australia, the cash rate, this is being the cash rate, this is the interest rate decision in Australia, and RBA rate statement. As you can see, the previous 2.5%, it is still expected to come 2.5%. So that inflation 0.6% when compared with expectations of 0.8% that we looked a bit earlier. So that inflation failed to drag the forecast here, but the rate statement is basically also a press conference, but the statement is like we had the FOMC statement from the United States, and this one here is exactly the same. Will be, I would say, dovish for the currency, for the Australian dollar. Dovish means bearish, and when you hear words like dovish or bearish, you should think of buying put options. This is how you should interpret inflation, as being the thing central banks are looking for establishing the monetary policy. Thank you very much for being here with us on fairbinaryoptions.com, Binary Options Academy project. And this time we looked at inflation, or CPI. Keep in touch, and let's move on with the fundamental news or factors that are influencing markets.